Have you ever felt like your heart was speaking, but no one was truly listening? Like your soul was whispering truths in the silence, yet all you heard in return was the echo of your own longing. There's a kind of ache that doesn't scream. It lingers. It lives in the quiet moments, in the pauses between his messages that never come, in the mirror when your reflection feels distant, unfamiliar. It's not the loud heartbreak that breaks you. It's the invisible absence, the way someone's lack of presence starts to make you question your own. Maybe you were the one who always tried to be everything, the one who made sure he felt seen, heard, desired. You sent the good morning messages. You kept your voice soft when all you wanted was to scream. You waited for his attention, then smiled like it didn't hurt when he didn't give it. You tried. You tried so hard. And still, you were the one left wondering what went wrong. There's a haunting question that follows many women, especially the ones who love deeply. What did I do wrong? But what if that's not the real question? What if the truth is, you didn't do anything wrong? You just forgot something important, something sacred. You forgot that you didn't come here to be chosen. You came here to remember who you are. Louise Hay once said, "I am in the right place, at the right time, doing the right thing." But when you're stuck in cycles of waiting, proving, bending, it's hard to believe that, isn't it? It's hard to feel like you're enough when someone treats you like you're replaceable. But maybe the deeper pain isn't about him at all. Maybe it's about a part of you that still doesn't feel safe being who you truly are, without apologizing for it. There is a woman inside you who's tired. Not just tired from heartbreak, but tired of pretending, tired of performing for love, tired of asking questions she already knows the answers to. She doesn't want to be desired. She wants to be felt, deeply, honestly, without masks, without games. And yet, she's been taught that her value depends on how much she gives, how perfectly she behaves, how small she becomes to fit in his life. But let me tell you something with every fiber of truth I carry. The woman who changes a man isn't the one who tries harder. It's the one who dares to stop trying at all, because she has started to remember herself. And when a woman remembers herself, she becomes unforgettable. It's not about being more. It's about being real. And being real is magnetic. Because what a man truly feels, what he cannot explain, what keeps him thinking about you long after you've left, isn't your perfection. It's your presence, your energy, the way you own your story, even the broken parts, the way you stay true to yourself, even when it would be easier to shrink. You see, the mystery he feels, it isn't a mystery at all. It's your authenticity. It's your stillness. It's your courage to stop chasing and start receiving. It's your quiet no when you mean it. Your soft heart wrapped in strong boundaries. It's the way you walk away, not in anger, but in dignity, when your soul says, "This no longer serves me." And yet, so few women know this, not because they are weak, or blind, or naive, but because for years, they've been told that love must be earned, that they must become desirable to be chosen. But what if love isn't something you perform for? What if the love you seek begins the moment you stop betraying yourself? This is what he feels. This is what confuses him. This is what draws him closer, even when he doesn't understand why. And you don't need to understand it either. You just need to remember who you are. You just need to come home to yourself. Let me take you there. There's a strange kind of silence that enters a room when a woman stops asking to be chosen. It's not cold. It's not loud. But it's undeniable. It's the kind of silence that unsettles the ones who are used to her waiting, used to her hoping, used to her showing up, no matter how little they offered in return. That silence is the sound of her remembering her worth. The irresistible power of a woman who doesn't beg to be chosen isn't about arrogance. It's not a performance of strength. It's a vibration, a presence, a knowing. When a woman stands in the fullness of her being, without waiting for permission, without asking to be loved, something shifts around her, and men feel it, even if they can't name it. He may not say it aloud, but he notices when you stop chasing. He notices when your energy withdraws from the space of desperation and returns to the sanctuary of your own soul. He feels it when you're no longer performing, no longer twisting yourself into versions that might please him. And whether he admits it or not, it stirs something in him. Because a woman who is whole within herself doesn't seek validation. She radiates truth. And that truth is disarming. You see, many women carry a silent ache, a belief that love must be earned through sacrifice, that to be seen, they must constantly offer more time, more affection, more proof that they are worthy. But the paradox is this: The more you abandon yourself to be chosen, the less magnetic you become. He senses it. He may not know what it is, but he senses when your energy comes from fear, when your "I miss you" carries the weight of self-doubt, when your smile hides the plea, "Please don't leave." And that energy, it doesn't invite closeness. It creates distance. But the moment you stop waiting to be picked, the moment you root yourself in your own value, everything changes. Not because he suddenly wakes up and sees your worth, but because you do. And that shift, it's felt in your words, in your silence, in your presence, especially in your absence. A man might be drawn to beauty, to charm, to attention, but what keeps him haunted, what keeps your name echoing in his memory, is the feeling he had in your presence when you no longer needed him to define you. That's the kind of woman he doesn't forget. That's the kind of love that cannot be chased, only embodied. And it begins not when he chooses you, but when you choose yourself. We're not done. There's another kind of magnetism you carry, and it has nothing to do with how sweet you are. It's deeper than that. It's the calm power of emotional self-possession. Let's walk into that silence now. There's something unspoken, almost mysterious, about a woman who carries herself with emotional self-possession. She doesn't need to explain her worth. She doesn't rush to fill the silence with apologies or over-explanations. She's present, grounded, and in that presence there's a magnetism that words can't hold. You can feel it in the way she listens, not to respond, but to understand. In the way she allows space without trying to fill it. In how she smiles with her eyes, not to please, but because there is peace behind them. Emotional self-possession is not coldness. It's not distance. It's warmth without attachment. It's affection without fear. It's the art of loving, without losing yourself in the process. Many women have been taught that softness equals surrender, that to be feminine is to give without limits, to stay even when their needs are unmet, to love with the hope that love will someday be returned. But a woman in her power rewrites that script. She knows she can be soft and still have edges. She can open her heart and still say, enough. She can love deeply, but never at the cost of abandoning herself. And this is what captures a man's attention in the quietest of ways. Because he's used to women trying to please, trying to fix, trying to become the version he might want. But when he meets a woman who doesn't try, because she already is, something ancient stirs inside him. He begins to feel a different kind of pull, not toward possession, but toward reverence. You don't have to raise your voice to be heard. You don't have to compete to be chosen. Your calm is your power. Your boundaries are your prayer. And when you walk with the knowing that your emotions are sacred, not everyone will access you. And that's the point. There's a silence that a man respects more than any declaration. It's the silence of a woman who no longer begs to be understood, who no longer defends her worth, who no longer stays where her soul whispers, "This isn't love." And in that silence, she becomes unforgettable. But what happens when you stop trying to be enough for someone and start being enough for yourself? There's a different kind of alchemy that begins there. Let's meet that part of you next. There's a shift that happens when a woman stops trying to be enough. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it's undeniable. It's the moment when the mask begins to fall, not the one she wears for others, but the one she wears for herself. The mask of perfection, of effort, of overgiving. And beneath it, what remains is something raw, something honest, something profoundly magnetic. You don't have to try to be enough when you remember that you already are. But that remembering is difficult when you've been trained to believe that love is something you must constantly earn, that every silence from him is a punishment, that every withdrawal is a signal that you need to try harder. So you cook more, smile more, forgive more, shrink more, and still, you feel unseen. Because what he truly feels when he's around you isn't in what you're doing. It's in who you are when you stop doing, when you exhale, when you drop the need to impress, when your energy no longer chases, but simply exists, present, whole, undemanding. That's what makes him feel something he can't control. That's what stays with him long after the conversation ends. When a woman steps out of the performance of perfection and into the embodiment of her truth, she becomes powerful beyond explanation. She doesn't need to speak louder. Her silence is louder than any demand. Her stillness is more commanding than any strategy. And her presence lingers, not because of what she gave, but because of what she didn't give away. The paradox is this: when you stop trying to be the woman who makes him stay, you become the woman he never forgets. He may not know why. He may not understand what changed, but something inside him recognizes a shift. The energy is different. You're no longer waiting for his response to feel worthy. You're no longer molding yourself into a shape that fits his narrative. You're simply being. And in that being, you become magnetic. Because men are not drawn to perfection. They are drawn to presence. Not to effort, but to essence. And your essence is enough. Always has been. But there's more to this remembering. Because sometimes, when self-doubt returns, it helps to hear the voice of someone who believed in us before we knew how to believe in ourselves. Louise Hay was that voice, and her wisdom can become yours too. Let's listen to what she would say now. If Louise Hay were sitting across from you now, if she could see the tenderness behind your tired eyes, the strength hidden beneath your silence, she wouldn't ask you to fix yourself. She wouldn't ask you to do more, be more, give more. She would simply offer you the mirror you've been avoiding. And in that mirror, you'd see not what's missing, but what's always been there. You have been criticizing yourself for years, and it hasn't worked. Try approving of yourself and see what happens. These words weren't meant to decorate journals or posters. They were meant to wake something in you, to remind you that self-love is not a luxury. It's not a performance. It's a return. A homecoming to the part of you that never needed to earn love in the first place. There's a kind of woman that captivates not because she's flawless, but because she's at peace with her flaws. She doesn't cover her wounds with makeup or approval. She wears them like sacred tattoos, each one telling a story of survival, of growth, of becoming. And when a man meets a woman like that, something inside him pauses. He sees her. But more than that, he feels her. Because there's nothing more attractive than someone who doesn't abandon herself. No chase, no proving, no pretending, just presence, just truth, just a quiet, unwavering yes to who she is. And in that yes, she becomes a mirror too, not of who he wants her to be, but of who he forgot he could be around a woman who is real. Louise understood this. She knew that the energy of a woman who approves of herself is like a frequency, one that cannot be faked, forced, or forgotten. It's not about arrogance. It's about alignment. It's the way she enters a room without needing to be the loudest voice. It's the way she walks away from what no longer serves her, not in anger, but in grace. This is what men feel, even if they don't understand it. This is what pulls them in, not your effort, not your beauty, but your energy, your wholeness, your self-acceptance that radiates even in silence. And when you begin to embody this, when you stop criticizing the woman in the mirror and start approving of her, you shift your entire vibration. You stop attracting from fear. You start connecting from truth. And he feels that truth. But there's something else that protects that truth. Something subtle, but sacred. The art of not explaining yourself. Let's step into that power now. There is a quiet strength in the woman who doesn't explain herself. A sacred stillness in the way she honors her no without defending it. A kind of softness that doesn't come from pleasing, but from knowing. And in that knowing, there is peace. There is power. There is presence. You see, so many women have been conditioned to soften their truth for the comfort of others, to cushion their boundaries with long apologies, to question their emotions before someone else does. But what if you didn't? What if your feelings didn't need to be explained? What if your truth didn't require validation? When a woman trusts herself enough to simply feel what she feels, want what she wants, and walk away when her soul whispers, "This isn't it," she becomes unshakable. Not because she's hardened, but because she's rooted. She no longer seeks permission to exist in her wholeness. And a man feels that. He may not fully understand it, especially if he's used to control, to performance, to the chase. But when he meets a woman who doesn't dilute herself for approval, something ancient awakens in him. A reverence, a kind of emotional respect that goes beyond desire. Because desire can be fleeting, but respect is what anchors intimacy. A woman who doesn't explain herself isn't being difficult. She's being clear. She knows her limits. She honors her rhythm. She doesn't apologize for needing space. She doesn't shrink to keep the peace. She understands that peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of integrity. And in that integrity, she becomes unforgettable. There's a silence that follows a woman who walks away without a speech. A mystery in the eyes of someone who doesn't overshare, but simply lives in alignment. She doesn't reveal every thought, every wound, every memory, not because she's hiding, but because she's protecting what is sacred. Your emotions are sacred. Your intuition is sacred. Your no is sacred. And when you stop explaining yourself to those who never intended to understand you, you begin to hear your own voice more clearly. You begin to belong to yourself. And that belonging, that quiet, rooted presence, stays with him long after your last word, long after you've gone. Because it's not the explanation he remembers. It's the clarity. It's the energy. It's the self-respect you refuse to abandon. But there's another kind of memory you leave behind, one he carries not in thought, but in sensation. It's the feminine frequency that lingers. Let's feel into that now. Some women leave a scent, others leave a sound, but the unforgettable ones, they leave a frequency, a vibration that lingers in the room long after they've walked away, in his memory, in his body, in his breath, not because of what they said, not because of how they looked, but because of how they made him feel. It's not the words that echo, it's the presence. When a woman is deeply connected to her own essence, when she walks in the quiet confidence of someone who belongs to herself, she becomes imprinted in a way that logic can't explain. He may not even understand what's happening. He may shrug it off, distract himself, move on, but there it is, in the stillness of the night, in the moment, right before he sleeps, in the unexpected flash of memory when a certain song plays, or a scent passes by. You, because you weren't trying to impress him. You weren't trying to win him. You were just being, honest, whole, undeniably present. This is the feminine frequency. It doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, it doesn't seek validation. It simply exists, in integrity, in softness, in self-respect. And because it's so rare, it becomes unforgettable. He may be surrounded by others, but none of them carry that frequency, because none of them are you. You weren't the loudest. You weren't the one who gave the most, but you were the one who gave from fullness, not from fear. And that changes everything. There's a sacred energy that wraps around a woman who knows her worth, not because someone told her, but because she remembered. She doesn't perform. She doesn't prove. She just shows up as herself, and lets that be enough. And he feels it. He feels it in the silence after you leave. He feels it in the absence that suddenly feels like presence. He feels it in the contrast between what others offer and what you embodied. Because you didn't just pass through his life. You touched something deeper, something he didn't even know he longed for. And now, that energy lives in him. It haunts him. It heals him. It holds a mirror to what he lost, and what he may never find again. But here's the truth. Your frequency was never about him. It was about you, your journey, your alignment, your return to yourself, and that's why it remains. But there's an even deeper truth that often goes unnoticed. What truly binds a man to a woman's memory isn't her body, it's her energy. And when that energy is grounded in emotional presence, something profound happens. Let's open that next door together. There's a difference between being wanted and being felt, between being desired and being remembered. A man can desire many. He can be drawn to faces, to curves, to voices. But when he feels your energy, your truth, your presence, your emotional depth, that's when something shifts. That's when attraction becomes imprint. What makes a man emotionally addicted to a woman is never just her body. It's the way her energy speaks to him without words, the way her presence invites him to be more honest, the way her silence makes him question his own noise, the way her gaze doesn't seduce, it sees. In a world that often teaches women to lead with appearance, this truth is both revolutionary and ancient. Your body might turn heads, but your energy turns hearts. It reaches into places he didn't know were hungry. It touches wounds he never showed. And because it's so rare, so disarming, it leaves a trace he can't wash off. He might try to replace it, distract himself, move on. But emotional presence isn't something you forget. It's something you carry. And he will carry you, not as an object of desire, but as a reminder of what it feels like to be truly met. You didn't try to impress him. You weren't performing. You were just there, fully, present. And that is what made you unforgettable. Because emotional presence isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. It's when you listen with your heart, not just your ears. When you respond with truth, not just politeness. When your presence says, I see you, even when no words are spoken. That kind of presence stays. It stays in his body, in his memory, in his longing, and it creates a contrast so deep that even he doesn't know how to explain it. Because once he's felt that level of connection, once he's known what it's like to be in the presence of a woman who sees herself deeply, who feels herself fully, everything else starts to feel hollow. You don't need to perform to be remembered. You need to be present. You don't need to seduce to be desired. You need to be embodied. And the more you return to your truth, the more unforgettable you become, not because of him, but because of you. But sometimes the deepest impact is left not by the woman who stood out, but by the woman who stood in her power, in her truth, in her memory of who she really is. Let me tell you the story of a woman like that. A woman who was remembered because she remembered herself. She wasn't the youngest in the room. She wasn't the loudest or the most praised. She didn't dress to impress or laugh louder to be noticed. But something about her made him pause. Something about her stayed with him, long after the conversation ended, long after the space was emptied, long after others tried to fill the place she once stood. She wasn't trying to be unforgettable. She simply remembered who she was. There was a time, earlier in her life, when she had bent herself into shapes to be loved. She had dimmed her light to make others comfortable. She had waited by the phone, doubting herself in every silence. She had mistaken pain for passion, confusion for chemistry, and absence for mystery. But something broke, and in that breaking, something opened. She began to see herself, not through his eyes, not through the eyes of anyone else, but through the eyes of her soul. And what she saw was not a woman who needed fixing. She saw a woman who needed remembering the power she gave away, the truth she swallowed, the love she poured into places that never held her. And when she began to remember, she changed. Not loudly, not publicly, but internally, deeply. She no longer chased connection. She became connection. She no longer begged to be seen. She became visibility itself. And she no longer waited to be chosen. She chose herself. That's when he noticed. Not because she tried harder, but because she stopped trying at all. He remembered her, not for what she gave him, but for what she gave herself in front of him. A kind of presence he couldn't grasp. A kind of confidence that didn't shout. A kind of femininity that didn't need to seduce. And she didn't need to be remembered, because she had already returned to herself. This is the kind of woman who leaves echoes, not because she reached out, but because she let go. Not because she proved her worth, but because she lived it. And in the absence of her energy, something in him began to awaken. Not a longing for her to come back, but a realization that he had touched something sacred and lost it. But she wasn't lost. She had simply moved on, not in bitterness, but in freedom. Not with revenge, but with reverence, for herself, for her path, for her wholeness. And that, above all, is what made her unforgettable. But perhaps the most powerful realization isn't in being remembered by him. It's in remembering yourself. Let's return to that remembering now. Let's come back home. You don't have to be louder. You don't have to be prettier. You don't have to be sweeter, sexier, or more perfect to be magnetic. You just have to be true. Louise Hay once whispered to the hearts of millions, "I am enough, and I always have been." Not because the world always mirrored that truth, but because deep inside, beneath all the noise, there is a place in you that already knows, a place untouched by rejection, unshaken by silence, a place that remembers you were never broken, just buried, just tired, just waiting for permission to stop performing and start being. That's where your power lives. The woman who approves of herself vibrates differently. She doesn't chase. She doesn't beg. She doesn't shrink to be loved. Her presence says what her words no longer need to. And that energy, it doesn't fade. It lingers. It transforms. It heals. Marianne Williamson reminds us, our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. And maybe that's what you're feeling now. Not fear of being unloved, but fear of finally becoming the woman who no longer needs to be rescued. Because when you stop waiting for someone to choose you and start choosing yourself, everything shifts. This is not about him. This was never about him. This is about you. About your return, your remembrance, your homecoming. So the next time your heart aches with the question, what does he love about me? Ask something deeper. Ask, what am I still not allowing myself to love? Because there, right there, is your true magnetism. If this touched something inside of you, if you felt seen, held, or remembered, take a moment to stay close. Subscribe, not for me, but for yourself, for your healing, for your remembering. And don't stop here. The next video on the screen will walk with you even deeper. It speaks to the kind of man who doesn't deserve another minute of your silence, and how to reclaim the love you've forgotten to give yourself. Click. Continue. You are not alone on this path, and the woman you are becoming is already waiting for you there.